on behalf of Kirriemuir Community Council to this unveiling of the memorial plaque to Bon Scott. Bon Scott, known as, when he was born as Ronald Belford Scott, but known throughout the world of rock and roll as Bon. Now Bon was a Kirriemarian, but folk who didn't come from the town, that means he was a native of the town, and he lived up the road, just sort of north of here. And he lived there until he emigrated with his parents to Australia in 1951. Now Bon was some 18 months younger than me, so I can't really recall him. Although we'd have been cutting about Kirriemuir at the same time, I went to Webster's Primary School, which was the posh school, and Bon went to the Bond Street. But I do remember delivering milk as a milk boy to Bon's grandfather's shop in Bakery, which was in Bank Street. It's now where Fingerprint is now. And also his uncle, who had a small grocery shop up the road, a wee bit further up the road from where Bon lived, and across the road from Whiteside. And he's not the only musician in the Scott family, because his uncle George was a pianist, played the piano in a local country dance band. Now, the idea to honour Bon's memory actually generated from a pint of Guinness, really, with Davie Milne here and some of his pals who were having a drink in the Rood's bar. And we're talking about people in Kirriemuir, famous folk. You can see some of them round about here. Lyle, Barry and Monroe. And Davie said, well, what about Bon Scott? Davie, being a member of the Community Council, brought this idea to our next Community Council meeting. And lo and behold, we took it up, and the Community Council unanimously backed Davie, and the project got underway. So it's after some months of hard work by Davie and his pals, not anybody else, Davie and his friends, who actually got this project running and got to where we are today. Now this project's actually gained interest from the media and from other people who are interested in rock and roll from across the world. And believe it or not, I got a phone call about 6:30 yesterday morning when I was having a wash and shave, putting my clothes on from BBC, and I had to sort of give a wee interview. And then in the evening I actually got an email from a guy called Vince Lovegrove, who was a pal of Bon's in Australia. I was a fellow member of one of Bon's earlier bands, and he was the guy who was actually instrumental in Bon joining AC/DC. And Vincent asked me if I would read out his speech, his memorial speech to Bon. I'm sorry I can't do the Australian accent, but I'll do my best in the Kirrie accent. Vincent Lovegrove writes, I wish I could be there to be part of this unique occasion, honouring one of Kirriemuir's famous sons. But alas, distance and shortage of time make that impossible. Rest assured though, I am here with each and every one of you in spirit, and in the celebration of the departed spirit with which we all share. My name is Vincent Lovegrove. I was a close friend of Bon's, and I'm writing this missive from the other side of the world, in the hinterland of Australia's most easterly point, Byron Bay, in a tiny village called Rosebank. I feel privileged to have been asked to write a few words about my old mate, Ronald Belford Scott, known more affectionately as Bon. Bon and I first met in 1965, and that was 41 years ago. He was a young lad of 19 and me 1 year younger. We were in separate bands when we met, but we both clicked on first sighting. It was one of those friendships that didn't need working on. We quickly became best friends. He was a drummer in his band, me a singer in mine. I heard him sing one night and thought he was a unique vocalist with great potential, and I suggested to him that he should be singing and that we should join forces and form a band with 2 singers. He told me he'd like to sing, but he didn't think he could do it, and that he didn't have the confidence. But it didn't take him long to realise it was his destiny to be the singer in a band. So we formed a rock group, the Valentines, with both of us singing. It wasn't long before we were plotting and scheming about how we'd take over the world and become the world's best rock and roll band. Wishfully thinking on my part, but Bon almost lived to see the dream come true. Sadly, he died as his band AC/DC was on the brink of world fame and wealth. He never knew the extent of the legend he would become. I spoke to his mother last Sunday, and she reckons he always knew. She told me that Ron, as she called him, would always say to her how he'd become a millionaire one day. She said he was totally confident he'd become famous, and I reckon he probably did. Those few of us who always knew, well, we just always knew he'd become a star, but we didn't realise that one day he'd be named the bona fide #1 rock legend of all time by magazines and critics all over the world. By the way, Mrs. Scott, Isa, told me to tell you how proud she was of this plaque presentation in her old town of Kirriemuir. She and her family, including Bon left in Kirriemuir in 1951. Bon and I used to practice and rehearse in Isa's Lounge in Western Australia Port, suburb of North Fremantle in those days. In fact, his mother told me last week, with distinct laughter in her voice, for the first time in 4 decades, that she was a little annoyed by us lads playing our music every Sunday afternoon. Ron's father and I had to go into the kitchen while you boys stuffed us out of the lounge and played your loud rock and roll, she told me. It was no fun for us. She was probably like me, a Curry's fan. From day one, Bon and I were joined at the hip. We toured every beer salt barn, nightclub, pub, town hall, and even on occasion, shed in Australia. We travelled in a tiny little combi van, the 5 of us all cramped together. Smelly armpits, smelly socks, and musical equipment jam-packed in the back. We couldn't afford anything else. Neither could we afford a hotel room each, so we all stayed in the same room at hotels and motels, getting badly underpaid, working 5 nights a week, and 3 shows on most Saturday nights. It was tough, but it was fun. These days were the days that shaped up many of Bon's lyrics for his songwriting, which came years later. Many of the lyrics he wrote in AC/DC, the band that finally found him fame, were about our early days in the late 60s, living it real rough, 5 lads doing what 5 lads did in those days. As I said, it was a tough life, but it was fun. We were young at heart and free-spirited. I can name you many lyrics he wrote for AC/DC that were precisely about adventures we experienced. It's true that Bon had a tough streak. You had to be tough to survive the rigours of those pioneer days of rock and roll touring. It wasn't for the faint-hearted, but he also possessed a gentleness and a tender, caring feeling for his fellow man. He particularly felt a kinship to working-class kids and the homeless, the downtrodden and the afflicted. He had a giant heart and was a devoted, loyal and trusted friend who would stand by you under any circumstances. And that is where, as each and every one of you here could testify from your own experiences of life. But the thing I loved mostly about Bon Scott was his absolute, unique self-honesty. He was honest about himself. He had no frills. He knew his weaknesses and he wore them on his sleeve. What you saw was what you got. He was not bothered with grandeur. He was a real person and as honest as the day is long. And in this world today, that sometimes is a lonely character trait. An embodiment of the hardy character, sense of humour and irreverence to pomposity shared by the Scots and the Aussies, Bon Scott had no frills, no false exterior, no airs, no graces. He was the real deal. He walked the walk, he was human. He had foibles and was tempted by the dark side, like us all. He was no Superman, but he possessed a rare sense of honesty about himself. He lived by the golden rule: do unto others as you would have them do unto you. And that, in a nutshell, is why he's become such an icon. That and his lyrics. Some scoff at his lyrics. But those who have felt a kinship to Bon Scott know that his lyrics were real and from the street. To my mind, he is the street poet of my generation and the generations that followed. He wasn't into politics, but simple, everyday life. Everyone could relate to his lyrics, whether or not you liked them. Some of them had the nudge, nudge, wink, wink factor, but they were real. Future teenage generations will always be able to relate to Bon's lyrics. They are real, timeless, and some of them were perfectly tongue-in-cheek. His sense of humour was priceless. And we almost didn't join AC/DC. He had a near-fatal motorbike accident in 1974 and was recuperating for some 6 months at my home. I was a booking agent, and I loved this dinky little band from Sydney known as AC/DC. They were about to sack their lead singer, and they asked me if I knew anyone who could take his place. Of course I suggested Bon, but they laughed and said he was too old. When I told him, he laughed too, saying they were too young, too inexperienced, and they wouldn't know how to play rock and roll. I took him to see them perform, and after they made snide remarks about each other's ages, they had a jam session, and the future was immediately set in concrete. They clicked, Bon packed his bag, hobbled out of my home, still recovering from his accident, literally hopped into the waiting car and left. The rest is history. Without Bon Scott there, there's no doubt AC/DC would have not made the big time. However, I must say, without AC/DC, Bon would not have had the camaraderie or the platform on which he could showcase his talents as a lyricist and a performer. I last saw Bon in Atlanta, Georgia, about 12 months before his death. He was tired and impatient. The band on the brink of success. He had been touring on the road non-stop for 14 years. The wear and tear were starting to show. It was a very, very sad day when I heard he died. I felt the loss of a great friend, and to be honest, I've never really gotten over it. As each year passes, the little, and I won't say the word he puts down, gets more famous and more wealthy. I just wish he'd been here to enjoy it all. But hey, that's life. In the 26 years since his death, the 5 AC/DC albums on which he sang in just 5 years have sold an estimated 40 million copies, around 1/3 of the band's total sales over their 30 odd years. He must have been doing something right. People I have spoken to who have never met him have the same feeling about him as those of us who knew him. That surely says a great deal about the man and his music. This memorial plaque is a fitting memorial. It's made from Caithness slate, which is over 400 million years old. The surface texture of dimples and ripples was formed back from when rain fell onto it as a pool of mud that it once was. Now, Bruce Walker is a brilliant local artist, and he is, and sculptor, who made this plaque. And people gave me detailed descriptions of the arduous process. It is indeed a splendid work of art. Bruce Walker researched Bon's background in music for a few months before starting work on the plaque. Ironically, Bruce knew Bon's uncle George, who lived in Kirriemuir, who I alluded to earlier. And George played the piano at local charity events, as Bon's mother, Ida, confirmed last Sunday. Bruce had painstakingly hand-carved every letter and musical note with small hand tools, small mallet and chisel. I'm sure he is proud of the final result. The plaque, which is shortly to be laid in Cumberland Close, alongside 3 other plaques which have been laid commemorating Kirriemuir's other famous sons, Sir Charles Lyell, known as the father of geology, and friend and mentor to Charles Darwin, J.M. Barrie, of whom I say no more, and Sir Hugh Munro, who listed all the Scottish mountains over 3,000 feet. So it's a great honour that a working man is there amongst the greats. So I reckon that Bon is in good company, and I'm sure if there was a plaque for gingerbread, Kirriemuir itself would be on the receiving end. And then he goes on to say a wee bit me and says that I hope that the Aussie accent is right. Well, I'm sorry, I just didn't do that. But he concludes by saying, thanks, it was a long way to the top, long live rock and roll, and Kirriemuir, the birthplace of Ronald Belford Scott. And that is from, that's all the way from the to the point. And I'd just like to give some thanks to the people that have been involved in this project. And we've heard about Bruce Walker, but again I'd just like to say that Bruce is a great talented man. He's given of his talents and his time and produced this lovely work of art. I'd also like to thank Angus Council Community Grant Scheme for funding for the stone, Tayside Contracts for the installation of the stonework, Darren Hill of Kookaburra's Restaurant for a donation towards the cost of the stone. And when I got hold of Darren, he could have done the Aussie accent. Rory and the team at High Fly Banners from Wilkie's, who made the excellent banner you can see there, and all the other banners for DD8 Music. And Maggie, Ella and Sandra and everyone at Community Education at Fairley House who've helped. Alan Duckett and other members of the media who have given us excellent support and written excellent articles in their papers. All the guys at DD8 Music for their teamwork and helping making the day possible. The Community Council Chairman, Elliot Clark, and Gordon Burke, neighbour and friend of Davie Milne, for their motivation and support of Davie from the beginning of the project, and for Community Council members for backing the project. But last, I'd like to just give a big thanks once again, and I've said it before, is to Davie Milne here, whose idea became a reality, and he said, let's thank Bon Scott himself for giving us music and lyrics to make us laugh. Rock and roll music should be good fun, and AC/DC with Bon Scott at the helm would definitely that. Remember, it's a long way to the top, and if you want a rock and roll, so you would be as well to have some fun while doing it. I now call on Davie Milne, Gordon Burke and Stephen Gibbons to unveil the memorial plaque. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, thank you all for your attention.